A very good evening and warm welcome to all. Ms. Claire Chang, Senior Vice President and Co-Founder of Banyan Tree Corporate Private Limited and Chairperson of the Chair and Foster Program, SFP Board members, distinguished guests. My name is Justine. I'm a Chair and Foster Scholar and also a Year 2 student at the SMU Lee Kong Chen School of Business. Thank you for joining us this evening as we wrap the year with a networking session and give thanks for a year of great accomplishments. Tonight, we are privileged to hear from renowned executive search consultant Heiner Thorborg, who flew in specially from Germany to share with us on how one can define our ambitions and make them a reality. We will also get to hear from BoardAgender representatives during the panel discussion on how women and men can work out the stereotype barriers and navigate the corporate waters in a contested terrain to gain traction and direction. Ms. Junie Fu, BoardAgender Chair and Co-Founder, is unfortunately unwell today and hence unable to join us tonight. However, we are very pleased to have BoardAgender committee members, Ms. Georgette Tan and Ms. Karen Loon with us for the discussion. It gives me great pleasure to invite Ms. Claire Chang, Chairperson of the Chair and Foster Program, to deliver her welcome address. Let us give her a warm round of applause, please.
I feel always so good at this time because this is the last assignment of my year. And after this, I can really go on holiday. This year has been really exciting. So many things have been done. We have actually held 8 events, including a networking event this evening, and we have supported 4 partners events. We embrace pluralism. We work hard at partnerships and to look at possibilities. If you noticed, I've used all the P's. Do you remember the first P? Second P? Third one? Perfect. And I think that's exactly what we would like to work on, and it's the mission of what SFP is about. Pluralism, where we diversity. And we're looking at partnerships. We cannot do it on our own. And possibilities. So please allow me to highlight a few events that we have done to give you a flavor of what we have achieved. And really, in looking at those slides afterwards, I hope it works, that you will be able to reflect on your organizations and what you can do with SFP in 2018. Help me, because we cannot do this alone. But before that, let me first introduce my board members. Can they all stand up? We have Priyanka, Elaine, Lily, Professor Lily, and Violet. Sorry, these are the all-women's group. We do have 2 male members who are not here today. Thank you. So in March, we had partnered with this organization called CRIP. And those of you who know CRIP is a non-profit social enterprise that empowers women to become successful entrepreneurs. We believe entrepreneurship might be just a solution to enhance the woman's condition. You are your own boss. However small the business is, you are your own boss. And in April, we visited the Wellness Kampong, and that is really an eye-opener to us in Nisun, a program supported by the Alexandra Health Systems, where we try to look at a new model in aging in place. We don't need hospitals. We need a hospital beds, but the hospital beds can be your own home. And if it is technologically linked up, you can actually deliver care and receive care in your home environment. You don't need to go to a nursing home. You don't have to go to a hospice. You don't have to put away in some integrated care. But you can be at home, be taken care of, and at one press of a button, your call can be responded to. At another press of a button, your emergency button, an ambulance may come. We are hoping to look at a new model of care. It is an aging in place model, an organic bottom-up initiative leveraging technology. And we also had a public forum we organized with the SMU, and where we had 2 research fellows that actually looked at the regional best practices on aging in place. We learned a lot about how to do and how to deliver better to the elderly. And we also, in June, we had an ASEAN Forum on Fostering Women's Entrepreneurship. This is with the SCAP. And here we have representatives from the region, from various sectors, from government to NGOs, to network and to share best practices as well as opportunities. Now, the Conference on the Move is something I really like to highlight, and that is really our signature event for those who have not joined us before. Instead of having conferences in classrooms or have another talk show, we actually go to visit enterprises. And we have done a series in previous years. And this year, the first one we did was to go to Beyond Social Services to look at how the mutual support between the elderly and the young, and how that was being managed by the social services on the ground. We also have a Diversity and Inclusion Award, but the first P, pluralism, we truly believe. At this time, we sponsored and supported a young group of students and activists who were addressing the ideas and perspective from various cross-cultural perspectives. It was really a laboratory on pluralism. It is really about addressing tolerance, acceptance, and cross-cultural understanding. And there was one a very touching event we organized was with Jane Goodall. Those of you who know her, she is the champion for the wild. Her legacy is indisputable. Her courage and determination in connecting us to nature is admirable. We supported her because she, in our view, is a lady champion for nature. And nature intelligence is truly something we need to nurture in ourselves moving forward. And in September, we had a delightful networking opportunity with Mongolian Women's Association and also with the ASEAN Women Business Forum, Urban Future and Women Entrepreneurship. Again, that is another opportunity for us to scale up on partnership opportunities. Those of you who want to be global to Mongolia, let us know. The other signature event, and that was in September, we do every year. The first one we did was 2 years ago when we had Nolene Hazer who addressed us. This year, we had Professor Lily who taught us about placemaking. Have the cities delivered its promise? What is the quality of life, the way urbanization and urban planners have done for us? And Prof. Lily was a geographer, and through a broad brush historical documentation how cities has evolved, actually also shared with us the need for more place-making opportunities where people find their space and place to be expressive, to lead quality lives. And we also had another conference on the move in Polytechnic where we all learned about nutrition, what to eat, how to exercise, and be well. If you don't get to know that yourself and know your bodies and work it well, how could you then contribute? It was interesting. We learned so many myths about food, and we also learned so many things about the food we are taking are all bad. And we also learned about how to do very simple exercises to really stay fit. All this is really why I'm sharing all this. It's really to the need for women's perspective to question, to query, to review, to ask the what, the why, the hows, the when, for whom, for what purpose, and what for. So this time when we went to the last conference of the move to Yuhua Estate, to our ignorance, we suddenly saw estates where they use solar panel, they have green walls, they have community gardens, they have a direct autonomous chute. We saw the second generation of future housing entities in Singapore. There is so much we need to learn. There's so much women we need to know and ask questions and offer our perspectives. We are beyond gender discussion. We move from gender to what I say, agenda discussion. We have to put our perspectives on the agenda on all discussions, whether it's at home, or it is in a courtroom, or it is at Parliament, the big house, or it is in dialogue such as this. We need to find that voice, we need voices, and we need to work together. We have attracted closer to about 3,000 participants to our events this year. And we hope to see this momentum grow in the coming years. And with your help and your support, we should be able to scale up more partnerships. Till date, since 1993, at our inception, we have disbursed close to about $2 million to various groups, programs, in the region and within Singapore. And the next 2 years, we are going to refocus back to Singapore to explore partnerships to help students, faculty, communities to develop programs to create a resilient Singapore. And that's one delightful initiative that we have done was to actually have two of our scholars with us. There is Zhu Ying, who is from China, from the Lee Kuan Yew School of Business. We have Justin, whom we supported, who is from Philippines, Lee Kuan Yew School of Business. And I want to also make an announcement because of this wonderful resource I met only tonight, is to illustrate an example why we do this networking opportunities. Not to come to listen to Claire Chiang, maybe to listen to Heiner a little bit, and then of course to listen to Karen and to Georgia. But really, sometimes in this platform, you discover and then you align, and then you actually will find something you could do together. So I met Dr. Irene Lim, one person, but she's got 4 cards. Irene Lim, who is the founder and CEO of Little Sun Private Limited. She first came to us, I think, about 3 years ago. Irene, where are you? About 3 years ago, she showed me a little gadget, a little yellow gadget that is on solar lit, and you can put it in the home. You can explain to them more eloquently later. And now she has sold 500,000 of that. She's also a CEO of Dilco. Not quite sure what that does, okay? But more important to me was she is from Harvard Club of Singapore. And I think there is a lot that Harvard Club alumni could do with SMU, SFP, to do good or to do other programs. Now, this last card, Dr. Irene S.M. Lee, who is from World Innovation Forum. She is the World Innovation Forum Ambassador for Singapore. There is a pitch going on, and therefore you can Google to that. And there is a pitch, and there's a prize, and if you win it, you actually will be sent to Switzerland to attend a seminar on June 6 to 8 at Lucerne. This is open to all. So Google, find out more about the World Innovation Forum. And this is also something we were hoping to do in 2018 to encourage young people to look at new innovative ways and practices of alleviating poverty or enabling better listening or mobility or transportation or support programs for elderly at home with sensory, a lot of experiments in Oliver that I think Prof. Lily in her program in SMU with Shine is also doing. I think we need to forward to look at new ways of styling. So innovation is something important. Irene, please put up your hand so they know who you are. Please go to her and find out more. I think this is incredible work, and we hope to see how we could partner.
Thank you, Claire.
I think we should adopt a view of that social reality is continually defining dialogue. It's continually defining dialogue, therefore it is never definitive. It's not absolutist, definitely not ideological. I hope we will always adopt this forever defining dialogue approach, and therefore this must include ideas and voices of women. And this evening, not only have we celebrated the SFP, we are here to share and discuss the latest progress of women in top management. And we have, and among the international standards of corporate governance practices, appointment of female members of the board as board directors is still a concern. I personally sit on 2 boards in Europe. Thank you, dear. One in Copenhagen and one in Zurich. Doing 8 trips a year. If you want to tackle diversity, you have to actually first admit or say, are you willing to put in those hours? 8 meetings, 8 trips, 8 files, many files to read, digest, process, and manage besides your own. So for all the issues that we want to deal with, we have to first ask ourselves, how are we stepping forward to deal with? Tonight we have with us a Heiner, who is a friend that I met a year ago, and very quickly had volunteered tonight to come and share with us. He is Heiner Thorborg. Do I pronounce it rightly? Thorborg. Graduated in business economics from the University of Hamburg. And to my delight, he was able to speak to the sound of our founder, Shirin Forster, Dr. Jimmy Forster, in German, I heard. Wonderful.
Am I supposed to make a speech also?
No. Dr. Jimmy Forster and Paru are in their 90s. Let's give them a round of applause. Jimmy is the son of Shirin Forster and is still a force in society. What is happening to me? Heiner joined Egon Zehnder in 1979, founded the office in Frankfurt, and served as the managing partner for 10 years. And in 1989, he started his own executive search firm. He advises boards of listed German and Swiss corporations, as well as the owners of privately held enterprises, on their needs for executive and non-executive directors. So all of you who want to do 8 trips a year, make sure you give your name cards to Heiner. More interesting for me, Heiner Thorborg is also founder of the Women Business Network Generation. He's a CEO. Today, he's honorary president of the Harvard Business School Association of Germany, and that's where I see your common ground with Irene Lee, also from the Harvard Business School. So we have, of course, 2 other persons who will join us later in discussion, who will be responding to what Heiner has to say, and I've already instructed both of them to disagree whatever he said, so that we have a dialogue in construction. Without much ado, let's welcome Heiner Thorborg.
Dear Claire, ladies and gentlemen, before I start with my speech, let me make 2 personal statements. One is, I love to be a member of a minority group, especially when the majority is female. And the second, I'm very, very optimistic that our cause to promote female leaders is on a good way. And I'll give you 2 examples from Germany and Switzerland. I did 2 searches, one for a large medical care company, Fresenius, 30 billion euro in sales. They were looking for a CFO. And the CFO now is a woman. She is British, speaks German, thank God. Otherwise it would have been slightly difficult. And the second is the largest cement manufacturer in the world. That is Lafarge Holcim, based in Zurich. They also looked for a CFO. And guess what? The new CFO is a French lady. So two very, very prominent placements in Europe. And the reaction in the press in both cases was the share price went up. So if you want any good news on this subject, that is good news. Now, most of you will most probably be wondering why a German headhunter, executive search consultant, is standing here tonight, totally unknown in Singapore and hardly known in Asia, to speak to you about the female cause. Now, this is a very good example of networking, because last year I asked a very influential person in Asia to help me, because I was looking for potential candidates for non-executive board positions. This person still wants to remain anonymous, so I cannot tell you who it was, but he mentioned your name, and I contacted you. And your immediate response was very positive. So we met in Singapore about a year ago. And within, I think, a couple of minutes, it kind of clicked, because we realized we have very similar values. We believe in very similar things. We both believe that the slow improvement of the female leaders' cause is not only fault of the corporations. There are some other reasons which I'm going to talk about. So that is why I'm standing here today. And when Claire asked me if I was prepared to do it, I said, of course, I would love to, because I spent 8 days on the Maldives before I came. So I could combine that. And you know this little island, Rabinfura, was very nice and relaxing. Now, here comes my speech. Gender diversity in the workplace should be viewed as a business issue, not a gender issue. Guess where I found that? Most of you know that because it's on the website of BoardAgender. This claim is true and efficiently describes a highly complex issue in only 16 words. It is true indeed. Studies from several organizations, amongst them the business consultancy McKinsey and Catalyst, the American lobby organization for more women in business, prove that diverse management teams are significantly more successful. Financially, companies with the highest proportion of women board directors outperform those with the fewest significantly. Where there are at least 3 women on a board, financial performance improves. 3, though, is the minimum number to influence the dominant culture of a group. The classic queen bee alone, another proven fact, is unable to change anything. Either she adjusts to the male code of behavior, or else she fails. This is not rocket science, of course. Intelligent organizations know that. One does not even need to dig deep into the financial data. There is simple anecdotal evidence. 80% of all purchases are conducted by women. So it cannot be good business if everything from R&D to marketing and sales is dominated by men. The cry for more women in business, therefore, is not about equality or ethics or about feeling warm and fluffy. Women in business are about good business, full stop. Many economies will have trouble with further economic growth if they continue to ignore 50% of the potential future leaders because of their gender. An increasing number of corporations now have heard the message and search high and low for female executives because they have realized that female input is an invaluable resource. I should know. As an executive search consultant in Germany and Switzerland, I've seen the number of clients explicitly asking for women candidates to fill their executive vacancies rise dramatically in the past 10 years or so. I also founded the Female Factor to get these companies to connect with potential female recruits. Qualified, ambitious working women who have the will and the talent to pursue their professional dreams. 10 years ago, I launched the initiative Generation CEO, a working network now numbering some 190 women, who amongst them have 63 seats as executive board members in large corporations, such as the German National Rail Service, Deutsche Bahn, or BMW, the car manufacturer. 15 of them are CEOs. The network altogether represents over 180 non-executive board memberships. If this group does not prove that female and top manager are not a contradiction in terms and far from it, then I don't know who or what does. European governments are also increasingly pushing to help establish equality. Many countries in Europe now have quotas, at least for female non-executive board members, amongst them Germany, my home country. So both intelligent organizations and administrations are trying hard to leverage female input in the business world. Still, in many parts of the world, females are woefully underrepresented in the higher echelons of banks, retail, and manufacturing. For example, let's have a look at the Singapore Council of Women's Organizations website. There we read, more than half of the Singaporean population is female, and yet only a small percentage of the vast pool of well-educated and experienced businesswomen are represented in the senior ranks of corporations. The list of reasons why female leaders are still underrepresented in most regions and industries is endless. We have heard various explanations for their absence in companies' top floors, such as glass ceilings, the lack of role models, and organizational support. We have also heard of more personal reasons, women's difficulties in dealing with both family and career, and the never-ending guilt trip on both ends. When mothers spend time at home, they feel bad about neglecting their career. When they are at work, they worry about not being a perfect mother. Even here in Singapore, I wonder where so many families have staff to help with the household and the kids. The world-famous amas or maids. So many educated, ambitious females do not make it into executive roles. I therefore suspect that in Singapore, with maids and nannies in most households, a lot of female underrepresentation has to do with external reasons. The before-mentioned glass ceilings, lack of role models, and organizational support. And it is true, gender stereotypes are alive and kicking. Female managers still are much likelier to be considered hard, egotistical, and harsh than their male counterparts. Female leaders are supposed to be soft and hard at the same time. Many female executives battle with the challenge of combining those characteristics which are expected of women, such as nurturing others, with characteristics expected of a leader, self-assuredness and being in control. Most women still retreat from the workforce, even temporarily, for the sake of having a family. Once they are back, many lack the time and energy to work on their networks in addition to all the other obligations they try to fulfill. Many still cannot find a role model to teach them that power in combination with responsibility is not a curse, but can be a blessing. But these are not the only reasons, are they? Women themselves have to want success, power, and the chance to make decisions. And so many shrink back when opportunity knocks on the door. I, for one, observe an alarming lack of professionalism in too many female executives when they receive a call from a headhunter. Recently, I contacted a handful of ladies working for big international luxury operations and was astounded by their answers, which ranged from, "I do not want to move," this before the lady had even heard what my call was all about, to, "I need to discuss this with my husband first," to, "I'll be back with you next week," never to be heard from again. These anecdotes showcases two conflicting messages in my view, one positive, one not so. Whilst many companies are actively attempting to hire and to develop women for executive positions, the willingness of women themselves to really want to rise to the top levels of the companies is in many cases less evident. The good news is this: in the Fortune 500, the 500 largest public corporations in the United States, the average number of female board members rose from 15% in 2007 to 21% this year. The bad news is that too many women still have an ambivalent relationship with power. Many still recoil in horror when they are offered a really big job. And bosses can only hire women who are truly willing to deliver in a high-flying job, take on the responsibilities, the long days, and the decision-making. A few years back, I arranged for a little survey amongst the women in the Generation CEO network. The result was rather shocking. Even amongst those highly qualified, extremely successful women, many admitted that they are disgusted with the intrigues and power games in large organizations that facilitate male careers, find themselves isolated as a woman in their environment, struggle with the notion of power and with having it, since power is often seen as the ability to act unreasonably and to get away with it, than a tool to make ideas to reality and progress happen. In short, the decisive question which a lot of women do not really dare to answer is, how much do I really want an executive job? And to what extent am I hiding my own insecurities behind the rather old-fashioned notion that successful women are slightly intimidating and have troubles finding a husband? In a study of students, psychologists of the University of Michigan found that men in search of a lasting relationship would rather marry a woman in a lower-ranking job than one with executive status. The reason? They believed a woman with a good job would more likely cheat on them. Not too long ago, a stunned public were introduced to the reality of young women studying at Harvard Business School. They told journalists they would never mention their university while dating. They called the business school the H-bomb, because as soon as you say Harvard Business School, the conversation is over. Evidently, men learn early on to protect their eggshell thin egos from intelligent women. Male behavior is but one side of the coin, though the other belongs to the women themselves. For my book, the translation is a bit misleading, Topless, Why There Are No Women in Our Boardrooms. I interviewed I interviewed 20 female top executives together with a female journalist. We, of course, asked them about the issue of women in success. Many of the interviewees turned out to be flabbergasted by the diligence shown by the majority of women who tried to hide their light under the bushel. One female French CEO said, "During my career, I turned 6 women into CEOs. If you promote a man," he says, "thanks a lot, it was about time. I have been waiting 2 years for this to happen. If you promote a woman," she'll say, "thanks, but I'm not really sure that I'm up to it." As a headhunter, let me tell you, if you offer a man a great position, you will never hear, "Do I really want this?" It rather sounds like, "Finally, I've been waiting for years." Okay? Women in the same situation are instead full of doubts. Am I good enough? Do I want this to happen? Why would I burden myself with this job? Moreover, many of our interviewees had problems with their own success. And it is true. Men learn earlier to deal with power and to be clever in a political sense. Boys are more interested in status and are also encouraged to define the role and status in harsh competition while growing up. Women mostly have to learn this as adults. Also, there is a general suspicion when it comes to power. Women are not at ease with the potential traps that come with responsibility and do not like the burden to sometimes have to execute power in a negative sense, firing people, making hard decisions. There is an ambivalence in dealing with influence and the way power is executed. A big German weekly calls this phenomenon the mental housewife. Frankly, that is a pity. In my view, we have to reconsider the theory of the glass ceiling. Its basic assumption is that women hit an invisible but nevertheless impenetrable boundary once they have reached a certain hierarchical level. After reading the research, I don't believe this to be so. There is no one barrier at this ominous level X, but instead, there is an interconnected matrix of external and internal obstacles on multiple levels that obstructs women's advance, even into the ranks of middle management. So, women have to consciously work on getting ahead. Many instead chose to stay in their offices, do the work, heads down, and wait and wait and wait for their employer to discover their hidden talents. This normally does not work. Self-marketing is not a four-letter word. After all, it is a must. Still, it does not help women to concentrate on the challenges. It is much smarter to focus on solutions. This presentation is deliberately entitled "Get Over It," and it is Claire who told me that's going to be the title, to help you find a way to clearly define your ambitions in life and work. The first step is to try and find an employer who is serious about diversity, whose executive positions are the result of performance and nothing else, where the execution of influence is transparent and closely monitored, who measures and honors productivity fairly. The criteria should be value added and not hours spent in the office. If you work for a company where women are seen as the ones that serve the tea in the boardroom, but not the strategic thinking, move on, don't stay. And many women hate to move on. Unfortunately, sometimes it has to happen. If plenty of women move on, the employers left behind will feel the brain drain soon enough. Talent is a rare commodity these days. Let the dinosaurs feel that they're losing out. if they do not value 50% of the talent on the market due to gender stereotypes. Do not think you cannot change your environment, because as a group, women can. Also, think about your own inner housewife. Reassess your relationship with opportunities and power. Reframe your mindset and proactively embrace your ambitions. Hire a nanny and a maid if you do not have them yet. Make sure that at home you can focus on the family, but at work, focus on the business. Your boss cannot read your mind. If you do not communicate your ambitions, your employer will not wait for you to come out of your shell. Tell your bosses that you want to get ahead. Tell them where you want to be in 5 years' time. And tell them why you are the right person for the next job opportunity that arises. Do not answer, "I have to talk to my husband first," when an executive search consultant calls. Never, ever. He will never call again. Find a position where your achievements are transparent and easily measured and cannot be dismissed. That is usually the case in sales or any position with P&L responsibility. It is less evident with achievements in HR or marketing. Visibility is key. Start thinking about your own network in more strategic terms. Go to conferences and trade shows. Meet the important players in your industry. Go chat to them and get yourself known. Use the time in meetings constructively. Be well prepared. Know your stuff. And then have an opinion and make it heard. Lean in, as famous Facebook manager Sheryl Sandberg said so impressively. If you're unsure about how to present your input, find a training course in presentation techniques and rhetoric. Work on your confidence. Find a mentor. Motivate successful, respected people in the organization to work as mentors for others. Start a mentoring program in your organization. Singapore may still be an old boys club to a very large extent, but so was the US not so long ago. Now, 26 of the Fortune 500 companies have a female CEO. Amongst them, car maker General Motors, chocolate giant Hershey, Nasdaq Stock Exchange, PepsiCo, and even IBM. Things are moving in the right direction, and I do sincerely believe the future is yours, my ladies, if you really want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thorborg. We will now proceed to the panel discussion moderated by Ms. Claire Chang. May we invite Ms. Claire, Ms. Georgia Tan, and Ms. Karen Loon to join Mr. Thorborg on stage for the panel session.
Thank you, Heiner. That was a very insightful delivery. And he said that I gave the title, Get Over It. I thought I should give a background. I think we're tired of dwelling on just discussing gender issues. I think we are overqualified. We are educated. We don't need to deal with it. We know that we are capable, maybe better. So we didn't want to dwell on that. But women, as you said, about the confidence factor, there will be the organizational factor, there are many other matrix for indicators to look at into to get over it. That's the reason why the title. But I'm also the founding committee member of Diversity Action Committee. The reason we set up this seminar is Singapore really hopes to move the needle, but by 2030, we will have at least 30%, those who in BoardAgender will know, to be represented at the board level. Now, that is a tremendous task, but we hope to able to scale it after you've been inspired tonight by our three speakers. So we have with us Georgette. I want to really properly introduce. Georgette is MasterCard in 2000, and as its group head communications for the Asia Pacific region, is responsible for external and internal communications and corporate social responsibility throughout the region. Georgette has worked to establish MasterCard as a thought leader through the development and promotion of MasterCard's suite of research properties, which serve as a benchmark for a myriad of economic, industry, and consumer trends. Now this one, she has done this while also spearheading MasterCard's CSR efforts, mainly education and development programs, to help empower women and children across the region. And in 2005, in keeping with MasterCard's philosophy of helping people to participate fully in the economy, she launched an index that specifically measures women's socio-economic advancement in the Asia-Pacific region. And this is called the MasterCard's Index of Women's Advancement. Let's give her a round of applause for that. Karen has joined PwC. Do you know what PwC is? PricewaterhouseCoopers House, yeah. And was transferred to PwC Singapore in 1994. She is a client relationship partner in the assurance practice with clients in the banking industry. So that's the job for the CFO is there. In July 2013, Karen was appointed PwC Singapore's Banking and Capital Markets Leader and Territory Diversity Leader. She's also PwC's East Cluster Diversity Coordinator and has chaired PwC's Global Financial Services. Frequent speaker, a panelist, and thought leader on diversity. I am very honored to be able to be the moderator for such interesting and qualified women and with Heiner. So I'm going to just shoot the first question to both of you. Your immediate reaction to what you have heard from our speaker. Georgette, go.
I think certainly some good points. I really liked the way you structured it. It was very male skewed. You were systematically tackling at one thing after another. I'm not sure women's brains work that way, though. Maybe we need to think more systematically like a man. Or maybe men need to think unsystematically, if there's such a word, more like a woman. But I think you raised some good points. I think a lot has to do with a woman's confidence level. I think that's a function of nature, of nurture, environment, education, opportunity. Now, I think women are making their way in the educational space. All right? I think in many markets, many countries around the world, there are more women in tertiary education institutions than there are men. What happens when they get out? It's because of opportunity. We need to find ways to give opportunity to women. That's when they can then step up. And that's where I think that bridge is important.
Can I ask the other two speakers to hold your mic as well? You can intervene, and so that we don't have to wait for your turn. You can just interrupt and you just speak. After all, women are not very systematic about it.
That's right.
So let's be unsystematic and be ourselves, right? And show Heiner who we are.
Absolutely.
Karen?
Yeah, no, I thought, I tend to agree, very systematic. I think the study information we tend to agree with. I thought some of the comments that were a little bit interesting, and it was really around power. You talked a bit about power, you talked a bit about your views about whether women are reluctant to take on power. So I think there's probably, I would probably tend to agree there's some truth in that. But I actually think that one of my sort of comments is I think we have to not just look at it from the women's there as well. When I was sort of reflecting back on my own comments and my own experience there as well, I think we have to probably remember some of us have actually grown up in environments where we haven't seen as many women in roles, and we've had to probably fight a little bit. I don't know whether, my sort of initial thinking, are we actually tired? And maybe there's an element there that, yes, you say that we need to be confident, but we've had to sort of probably fight a little bit more along in our careers. And whether that's maybe part of the reluctance, we actually probably need a bit more support as well. So that's one thing I sort of thought was a little bit, I guess, interesting as well. The other one I quite liked, he started to make the comment about, husbands and roles of husbands, finding husbands is a challenge. I actually got married in my 40s, so that one sort of clicked with me a little bit. And I have, but I fortunately found the right husband who's very supportive of me, so that's good. But I guess it's, I thought that that sort of comment is something a lot of us sort of would agree with. It's being a challenge.
Could I get back to that notion of power, and maybe Heiner could elaborate? Is it stereotyping that women don't need and want power, and that men do and play it? Is it so clear a gender issue, or is that another level of stereotyping to justify, defend, or explain?
I personally believe it's the way boys and girls are being brought up. It starts in kindergarten. There is research work on that, which says, I think, until the age of 3 or 4, they're equal. And then it starts. The boys get competitive, the girls don't. I cannot explain why, but these are findings. Okay? And what I'm saying about power is something many women struggle with. They don't feel comfortable with it. It's research. And, of course, to some extent, it's personal experience. But things are changing, and that is what I really want to say. I don't think there is great disagreement amongst us. Things are moving, they're slowly moving, but they're moving into the right direction. And in Germany, for instance, journalists are talking about, we've heard enough of this. Things are, somehow forget about it. I said, no. It's moving into the right direction, and the speed is increasing. But we have to be patient. And also, of course, it starts at university. I mean, studies like engineering, etc., go and have a look how many women you find there.
So, Georgette, what is your take? If it is something that is so endemic in the way we are brought up as girls and boys, how do we get over this?
It starts early. It starts when they're younger. It starts with, and I think we're seeing this already, it's not just about the pink powder puff things for girls and the military camouflage stuff for boys, right? It starts there. I think it comes from the home, it comes from the schools, and it has to be that balance, right? I want to take up that point about power, though, because and Karen knows this is a bit of a bugbear in my bonnet. It's not just about power, I think. I think with women, there's another facet of it for power. It's about influence. I think women would be happy to influence rather than be seen only as a source of power. So the point about, I think you can be a very effective leader and be in a seat of power, but do all women want that, seek that, need that? Or are they also quite comfortable to be an influencer in a different capacity? I think we have to ask ourselves that question too. So it doesn't mean that they're not effective. They can be equally effective.
Understand. That is another debate that says women really look at changing and influencing through using the soft leadership qualities, etc.
It's impact.
So Karen and Heiner, what must change? The women in the organization or the structures in the organization should change to bring about a possibility of us getting over it.
Okay. My personal view, I think it needs both, because I think, firstly, I can go back to Georgette. I think, I think it's interesting because I think women often not involved with sports. I think a lot of it starts with school, sports, actually being competitive, taking risks. And, women often are brought up with cotton wool around them. We don't take risks. And then we just progress on. We think that we will be recognised for the things we do when we actually don't realise actually we need to compete. So I actually think one of the things we need to do is actually educate our women earlier on, even well before they get to the work environment or even beyond, that maybe there isn't a level playing field. Maybe they need to actually take on risks and try different things out. So I think we need to start young, not when they get to senior management roles and they realise it's too difficult. On the other hand, I think there are a lot of biases in the systems. And organisations, I think, are full of people who think leaders look a particular type of way. They assess based on different characteristics, which are possibly some of the more aggressive ones. Yeah. And so they tend to think, okay, this particular person, whether a woman, a female, or other characteristics, may not actually have the attributes to be a leader. And so they tend to pick people they're comfortable with because they're easier to work with. So I actually think that organisations need to support changing the minds. They need to actually start to look at their pipelines, but also educate their people. It's a multifaceted thing.
Let me give you one example, Adidas. Adidas, world-famous sports equipment manufacturer. This company is more global in their staff than any other company. I think they have 110 nationalities, but they have no woman. And you ask yourself, how can that happen? What kind of bias is that? I mean, they have black, white, and whatever, but no woman. They recently had a change in the CEO position. The new CEO is Kasper Rostedt. He's Danish. He used to run Henkel very successfully. And his message to the organization is, I want to increase the number of women substantially. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? Because if you didn't hear me, I repeat once more. And if you still didn't hear me, you find another job. Okay? But quickly. And that's the point I want to get at. If you have a CEO who really means business, you are on a winning track. If you have a CEO who thinks, well, it's the hype now, let's do it, and talks to the media in this way, and once the media have left the room, he kind of, doesn't care, then you're lost.
So what are we going to do? In Singapore, we just have only about 11% of CEOs and board who believe in diversity. We fire all of them? What can we do to move the needle? Georgette, what are the 2 things you will do if you are the boss?
I think it's already started. I think the guidelines that have been provided should be enforced. All right? And I think there should be a fame and shame aspect to it, where good bosses who promote women, who fight for and support and empower women within their organizations should be cheered on, right? Now, the competitiveness in men will surely come through, because those who don't do that won't be cheered on. They will be shamed indirectly, and they will then jump on the bandwagon, and they will follow after. But it starts with a few. We've got to have these champions. These champions must be given the opportunity to speak, right? And there must be these forums like these where we celebrate the ones who get it right.
What 2 things will you do if you are the boss to promote diversity?
I think clearly that there must be always women on a slate for promotions. All right? If there are no women on a slate for any position that's for promotion, you start again. You have to. All right? And you start to hire from college. You'll start to look for the talent in the schools, because that's where you can catch them and cultivate them. And you give them that runway. You need to give them that runway. These women need to know that they have a future and it's a bright future for them. And they don't have to worry about losing their jobs because they go take a sabbatical for 2 years.
What's the second thing you'll do, Karen, to change the workplace?
I actually think that one of the things that I think is important is, going back to the recruitment, I think we need to support the women. We need to recruit with the right slate. But I think we also need to help to track if our processes are actually wrong. So one of the things is we just can't assume that once they're in the system that everything will be okay. We actually should try to track and use, I actually think things like data, we all talk about data, can actually be used to analyse, what's happening with your systems. And if you're not got things like proportionate promotions, I think you should, as employers, they should actually continue to track and say, why? How do I fix my processes? Is there something wrong with my processes? And use that, I'm not saying people should be promoted for the sake of it, but try and understand how we continue to make the process better to allow those women, once they're in the system, to recruit and get through.
Heiner, as male, do you see these processes as affirmative actions? That there is sort of a bit of a female bias, and that the male employers all feel a little uncomfortable as well with it?
Well, there are various aspects to that, and let me give you some examples for what you don't do and what you better do. One is introduce sanctions. If men don't adhere to the new policy or the strategy or whatever, there must be sanctions. That means money. The easiest way to get a male is to cut his income. It's so easy. The moment he understands, if I misbehave, if I prefer my buddies, I lose a couple of thousand or 10,000 or $1 million, whatever, in my annual income. Oh my God, let's revise. Maybe I'm a little stupid. So let's turn it around, okay? And that's very easy. But what you need is you need a strong CEO who will introduce it and follow up and will not give up.
Can you name me a company that does this sanction?
There are a number of German companies doing that. Yeah. The other point I want to make is what you need is positive discrimination. What do I mean with that? If you have two equally qualified people, a male and a female, you better take the female. Because if you don't do it, things will not change. Very, very important. And what you better don't do is what German corporations have done over the last couple of years, which turned out to be a complete disaster. They hired at C-level females from outside. These females, 90% of them I know personally, okay? And they were complete failures, not because it was their fault was to say yes. They should have said, no, I'm not ready for that, because these women were not qualified. And they, one after the other, after 12 months, 50 months, they were gone. And that you better don't do. You have to promote from inside. That's the easiest way. Get them in early enough. Mentoring, build in, there must be support, because there are not sufficient, there's not a sufficient number of role models, so you must give them support, and the support must come from the male side. It doesn't work another way. Impossible.
We've talked about power, we then went on about influence. We talk about organizational change, the need to have the slate of promotions and setting up the procedures, then look at clear assessment, and then using sanctions, perhaps, very, very interesting measure, and then to shame and fame. Could I get back to the confidence factor, Georgette? You think that is one of the biggest social psychological hurdle for very qualified, very able women in Asia in moving forward? Not that they don't want, but the whole social cultural.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think there's still a cultural overlay, all right? And that's not going to go away soon. It may take a couple of generations for that to actually take place. my daughters maybe, if I'm lucky, will have that. That they don't feel hampered, that they feel that they can take everything on, right? That they don't have to be only, that they don't have to worry about other things in the household too.
What steps do you think, Karen, women should take to get over this confidence factor?
Actually, I'm not quite sure I agree with Georgette.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, actually, maybe because I've lived in, my home country is Australia as well. I actually think Singapore women are very confident. I think they actually are, they're not shy at all. So actually, sometimes
Really? I think they still defer to the man.
I'm not so sure sometimes. Yeah, but
Very good. I like people who disagree. So I'm going to open this up, this moment, for the floor. No, Jimmy, you cannot. I have the beautiful lady. Yes, let her take the space first. Yes, go ahead.
Can I,
Please.
before we
Okay,
do that,
so
can
we
I
must have
just
Heiner.
make a final remark?
Yes.
I want to speak for those women who decide not to make it to the top.
Yes.
Because this is a completely
Yes.
private decision.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It's choice.
And I would never call a woman that says, I don't want that job, because I will be in the press every day, my family is in danger, all these things. I have great sympathy. But what you have to take into calculation is it's a long-term decision you're making. Don't come back in 20 years' time when the kids are grown up and say, I want to move in again. Forget it. It doesn't work that way, okay?
Please.
Okay, I'm Carrie. I'm from Daughters of Tomorrow. This is a great conversation. And I think all these things about confidence and all that, I just feel that when we talk about women not being confident and all that, this whole conversation, I just feel puts all the onus on the women to do something about it. We need to step forward. And I think there's another aspect of this whole, do women want to get into top management, and why do they not want to? I would imagine that maybe among the women that you have interviewed, when they say, am I ready for this job? There's probably a good percentage of them who are not doubting their own ability, but they're doubting how much battles I have to fight to get the respect in that position. And this is from the accumulation of daily struggles they have in meeting rooms with colleagues, with male clients who don't respect them simply because they're women. And they're like thinking, I can probably do the job, but then now I have to win the respect of the entire organization. Do I really want to fight that battle?
Now you know why Carrie steers Daughters of Tomorrow. She's looking to the future. So let me ask you, listening to all this and knowing about this confidence issue, what will you do? Two things you will do.
I think it's about organizational change starting with the men and focusing on getting men at all ranks to respect the female colleagues,
How?
right from the bottom rank.
How?
The CEO's got to figure it out, right? If a male staff, disses a comment made by a female colleague in a meeting, the leader should speak up. This is not acceptable. It starts with the everyday action, so the women don't find that every day I'm coming to work, I already fight the battle at home with my kids, my husband, and everything. I'm coming to work and I'm fighting this disrespect. Just to prove a point, I have to work so much more. I have to be soft and hard at the same time. Is it worth all this trouble to be in that position of power or influence? I think that's the question we need to be asking.
Thank you. Yes, respond. Georgette, then Heiner, take care.
I just want to actually call out the fact that Carrie herself is a perfect example of stepping up, voicing and having that thought process and shifting that mindset. Many of you don't know, but 6.5 years ago, Carrie came up with the idea of Daughters of Tomorrow. She entered a competition, which MasterCard was fortunate enough to be part of, together with UN Women. And that really, she hadn't formulated all her ideas yet at that point, but she still dared to do it. And I think you won the respect of everybody in the room there. And it's just been going gangbusters since then. So special shout out for Carrie because she dared it all and she put it out there. So that's an example of someone
It's like what
who
Heiner
changes.
said, she wanted it
Exactly.
enough. She wanted to succeed.
Correct.
Well done.
What we have? Excuse me? Can you hear me? What all of us have to accept is that for the time being, the rules of the game are introduced and managed by the man. Okay? And you cannot change the rules by staying outside. If you want to change the rules, you have to join them. And not only one. You have to join them in numbers, and then you can change the rules, not before. It's very simple.
So how do women rewrite these rules?
Together with a woman.
Get in, get over it,
Absolutely.
do it with a woman, and rewrite it.
So the power of 3, at least.
Minimum.
Maybe make my comment. I actually thinking a bit more broadly. We're not just talking about women or different minority groups. I personally think that the whole equation of diversity is moving on. There's a whole lot of discussion about inclusion, and inclusion to me is about respecting individuals. And so I actually personally think because organisations are a lack of talent, those ones who actually are thriving are going to be the ones where people feel they can belong, they get respected for who they are. I actually personally think things are going to change a little bit as well. As employers are going to have to be a lot more focusing on, respecting everyone, whether it's female or other backgrounds. Otherwise, they're just not going to have enough talent. So I personally am hopeful that things will move on because employers realise if they don't do the right thing about respect, they're not going to have enough people. And we're all fighting for talent at the end of the day as employers.
That's a really good point, actually, Karen, because I think women need to be more discerning about where they want to go work. It starts there. You've got to value what you bring to the table. Okay? An employer has to sell themselves as much as a candidate sells himself or herself. You may disagree as a headhunter, but okay. But honestly, I think women are now more discerning. They have every opportunity to be. And you're right, companies will have to step up if they want to be a good company to attract more good talent. Absolutely.
Can we have one more question from the floor?
This one is for you, Heiner. I started my career in Germany, and in the environmental industry, I was in the geotechnic and environmental company. So when I started work, my German colleagues told me that you are too exotic for us. I say, what do you mean? They said, well, number one, you're female in a German engineering company. Number two, you're Asian. Number three, you're too highly qualified. You're too well educated for us. Number four, you're young. Number five, you look too attractive. So what do? So I had to work really hard to prove myself. And I had a similar experience in Japan. Yes, even though I look like Asian, I look Japanese, I was not included. I was excluded from their circle. So I found that I had to work very hard. I had to work harder than the Japanese. I had to work during earthquakes. I had to work during floods, and I had to work without sleep. And I learned the language. I learned the culture, and I showed very good results. So in the end, I kind of broke through the cultural barrier. I broke through the gender barrier, and I made it happen. Thank you.
Good. Can I have a reaction to what Irene just said? That it seems women need to fight so much, so hard to get over it.
It's detrimental
Heiner?
if you do that. When was it? How many years ago?
Is detrimental?
90s.
Yeah, but that has changed in the meantime. I can assure you. You would be well received these days. If you try to be more male than the males, you've lost the game. Forget it. It just doesn't work that way. But I want to share one very recent experience with you. You know, apparently, I think you know hashtag #MeToo. Okay? One of the leading newspapers asked me if I would do an interview with one of the top women in Germany. And I said, sure. Because I think no mercy, period. There is nothing else but no mercy. They couldn't find a top woman to join us. They just would not speak up or out. So they canceled. What does it show you? It needs courage. Yeah? So where was the courage? And I mean, why didn't they do it?
Can I quickly bring us back to your statement? If you are more male than the male, forget it. Now, I like power. I do need the power to govern because I have to run a company, and it's a listed company. I do execute power because I need to make decisions. Am I a male?
If you do it in a male way, yes. Do it in a female way.
Okay, Karen, Georgette, help me out.
Please.
Why do we not able to, do I look male? So if I am male in my approach, and that allows me as a means to get to what I wish for, why not? So that's very much, I think, the crux of the issues of that definition of what is male and female, what is good or not so good, and forget it, don't be the male. That's what makes a lot of psychological burden for women to want to change anything, or want to speak up, or want to shout out. I wanted to check your mindset.
I think you're totally wrong because you have to remain authentic. Please, never try to be another person. And I give you a prime example. I talked about Lafarge-Holcim, okay? This French woman has two enormous strengths. One is she has an impeccable professional track record. But the other one is she has a charm, it's incredible. They got the man like this, but never crossed, of course, any, She did a perfect job, and the men love her, and they accept and respect her. But if she would be different, if she would tell the male, I'm better than you because I'm more male than you will not be accepted.
Response, Georgette.
That's probably because the male ego can't take it.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't matter
Just calling it like it is. No. Look, again, it's about stepping up and speaking out, right? And I think, Claire, to your point, your example, yourself, we started this conversation, it's about good business. Those decisions that you make wielding power, it's about good business. It's not about irrationality or emotion. It's about good business. So good business doesn't have a female or male face. It shouldn't have it. Not so much?
No. I tell you, any decision for a person, 60% is influenced by the personality, 40% by the professional track record. The person must fit the rest, and it must fit the expectations. And if it doesn't fit, the person will not get the job. It's very simple.
This is a great insight here, Carrie, for you about change. That when we need to change, don't just expect others to change. There is going to be a group change, slow influence. Can I call on one person whom I just met and who is a psychology in training, who has just written a book? I'm looking at you, Maggie, about not playing it safe. It's a fantastic title. I haven't had a chance to read it. And because she's so new to Singapore, she just arrived and barely 2 months. And therefore, this is very first sort of a fresh perspective. I'd like to hear her input.
Yeah, look, I've been listening and it's been a fantastic conversation, and something just came up because obviously just then we hit on a bit of a hot button about, are you selling out on your being authentic by making decisions sometimes like it would be seen as a man? And I think all of us possess feminine and masculine traits. All of us. And some of us more one than the other. You get men who have more of their feminine traits. And I think it's not about being more like a man, it's just being fully ourselves. And if women need to sometimes step up and exhibit those masculine traits, because that's who we are, because we have a little bit of that inside us, and sometimes the circumstances require that in order to be effective, to be a good decision maker, to be a good leader, to exert that influence, then I don't think that's inauthentic, actually. I think, and I do agree with you, we cannot be inauthentic, and I think as soon as we're inauthentic and sell out on who we really are, we do lose people. But I do think we can still exhibit some of those traditional masculine traits without being inauthentic, still being congruent with who we are. So, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you. That is another variant of defining authenticity, that while me being assertive and male does not necessarily make me inauthentic as Claire, as a woman, as it is just what requires for the case, a repertoire of skill sets. Could be very male, very female, to get the work done. I think we are all that. For the men, they want us to be competent, confident, yet charming. That's the word he used. Carrie picked it up immediately because I saw her grimace, Heiner, when you use the word charming. So what do we expect of the men? So let's not go down to the gender. Just give me two things as we wrap up. We know that Singapore is really committed to wanting to bring 150 women to be placed at the boards in 15 years' time. 150 women we are looking who really want to and say, yes, choose me, and be at the battleground. Give me two things we should do and must do to move the needle. Karen.
Okay. One thing, I think we need to help to educate the nominating committee chairs of those listed companies to be more open, to actually look for a broader range of candidates, including female. I think often they just look at their friends and they go, oh, it's all too difficult, I can't find the women. I don't agree with that. I think we also need to also gently prompt the women as well to think not that they're going to get the job just because they're female. They also need to be networking, like at these sort of occasions, and help get themselves out there and say, I want a board role or I want to do more. So that would be two of the aspects, I would say.
Would you say that for SFP you should encourage more classes such as this to help women step forward?
Definitely. You know, I think there's a role for education, professional bodies, many organisations to help the cause.
Prof. Lily, you heard that?
I think you'll have a lot of women sign up for it, though. I think I totally agree there's the education part. Women must want it, all right? But they also need help to get there. So whether it's at home, in the office, the home environment, and their own networks. So events like this, you know, networking groups, circles, whatever you want to call them, those are important. But women need also time to be able to reflect inside, right? So they need to be given that space to do so, and they have to carve that space out and block out some of that noise too. So they want it all. They should be given it all. That's the point. So education, stepping up. I love the idea of making sure the nominating committees, chairs, definitely. And I think Heiner should definitely spend more time out here and convince the other headhunters to make sure that when they look for board candidates, women are on the slate.
Great. Heiner?
Well, I'm rather relaxed about it because nature will take its course. Why I'm saying that? You look at the chairman of the large corporations, you look at the chairman of the nomination committees and look at their age. Sometimes in their 70s, sometimes maybe close to 70. They live in a different world. And you know, I've experienced that in Germany when the quota was introduced, 30% for non-executive board. The chairman thought that they would do as they always did, call their buddies. So they took their address book and went through and said, okay, then I call some woman. Oh my God, there's no woman. What do I do? Okay, that's when they decided to hire search consultants to find some women. And now with the woman coming on board, we have matched the 30%, by the way, okay? Within 2 years, it was done. So it can be done, right? Now, a very, very interesting side effect is the average age of the board members has dropped substantially because they would not go for the elderlies, they would go for the young ones. This has another effect. Now they're also looking at young men or younger men in their 40s, things like that. So it's really changing, and the faster this goes, the better the opportunities will be for females, non-Germans, non-Swiss,
Thank you. So this is waiting for a generational change. One last question. I have to give this to Dr. Jimmy Foster, who has put his hands up 3 times. I've ignored him and went for the woman. The floor is yours, sir.
Can you say it in German, please?
I'm going to cut it short. I had to say a thing, but Heiner, do you see how we are discriminated here?
Talk into the microphone.
Anyway, the point is, the way you people have been, I like the tactful manner in which you said that men have tunnel vision and women are good at multitasking. But nevertheless, the way things are going, Singapore will tell you that if you may not have 100 leaders in the next 90 years, you may have the population of Singapore diminished by 75% because women will refuse to bear children. And that will be a fit epitaph for not understanding that we are different human beings. One is the male, the other is the female. Unless we are on a unisex planet, I think you better get your bearings straight about this kind of competition. But thank you very much.
Okay, I will draw this panel to a close. The key word and from the panel, what I have gotten from, the word from Georgette is shout out. You want something, you step forward and shout out. From Heiner, it's about wanting it. Step forward and get there. Be authentic. And for Karen, I really like the last part when she was trying to moderate this increasing ideological discussion about gender, went to respect. Respect for qualities, for us, and being, just do your best and respect the differences and be the best. And for me, my job is in finding the fit. Finding the fit for programs and for partners, finding the fit for board positions and candidates, and the suggestions of nomination committees, being informed, creating sanctions, excellent, and education to continue with boys and girls as young, to start from beginning, and then change in organizations as bosses. So thank you very much for being part of this movement of change, and I hope, thank you. Thank you, Georgette, thank you, Heiner, thank you, Karen, and I had to thank Julie, who is the hardworking coordinator for the SFP program and worked so hard. And thank you for the whole team for being behind, although the video did not work. And now it leaves me to do the most pleasant part of the evening, to deliver the gifts. Could I ask our provost, Lily, Professor Lily, to do us the order?
May we invite the rest of the SFP board members and Mr. and Mrs. Foster to join us on stage for a group photo.
I wanted to say that Professor Lily Kong is the first woman provost in Singapore. Let's give her a round of applause. And I think she wouldn't be there if not for a very fairly enlightened board. as well, and for selection process that I think it is fair and objective about performance. And Lily did it all. Thank you.